Hi, welcome back to the Dialed In Angling Podcast, presented by Strike Master Augers, Onyx Fish, St. Croix Rods, and Seviin Reels. Well, this week we've journeyed to Hayward, Wisconsin. We're going to fish the Chippewa Flowage. You know, the Flowage and the Hayward area, Park Falls area, they're all that beautiful territory in northern Wisconsin. You know, there's a lot of history, rich fishing history. I know it's been a mecca and a destination for anglers all across the country. My trip to this region would not be complete without coming to the St. Croix Rod Factory. You know, the factory store is here. They do factory tours. And sitting with me right now, my guest, Ken Bonus. He does the factory tours at St. Croix Rods. Ken, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. Good morning, Tony.
You know, just coming to this area as you're driving past all the resorts and the water, you can't drive by these regions without getting that sense of the rich fishing history. And then, of course, you come to Park Falls. You know, one of the first things that I always see is St. Croix Rods. And me personally, until I started working with St. Croix Rods over a decade ago, I had never done the factory tour. And when I came to this company and I did the factory tour, it was mind-blowing. The craftsmanship, the art, the passion that everyone here at St. Croix has for fishing. And when I did the factory tour with you, it was mind-blowing. It was an amazing experience. I tell everyone, if they're coming to this area, they've got to do the factory tour with Ken. Ken, give us a little sneak peek into what folks can expect when they come here to St. Croix.
Well, when they come to St. Croix, they're going to see a lot of humans. The rods are built by 32 sets of hands, and incorporated into that process is perfection. Lasers all over the place, things I can't even talk about because they're company secrets, but so much precision and so much human involvement. At the beginning of a tour, sometimes I will mention to the group that if anyone has come with the intention of seeing automation, they can leave now because we don't have it. It's handcrafted one end to another. Interestingly, when I started here in 2001, the sign on the building said world-famous handcrafted fishing lures. 2001, handcrafted, didn't add up. Then I got into the factory. That's the way it is done. And so the sign was very much appropriate. You started with talking about coming to this area, the fishing, etc. That's how St. Croix got here. The Johnson brothers at the time had facilities in Unity and Loyal, Wisconsin, about an hour's drive south of here. Came up to do some fishing, liked the area. They wanted to consolidate their facilities and not have to run town to town all the time. So they made the decision of move the factory. Wouldn't that be a nice option for the rest of us to go on vacation and say, I'm not coming back, send everybody this way, and don't forget to bring the machinery. But the tour, the factory part of it, of course, I give a bit of a lead in, a little bit of the background of St. Croix. But the factory part of it lasts about an hour and a half. And I've been told after tours, especially by somebody that's not an avid fisherman, but they're going to go with the spouse just because they might as well go along, that before the tour starts, they're wondering, what can I talk about for 2 hours about making fishing rods? They're long, they're skinny, they got things on them to hold the line, the reel, and a place to put your hand, and big deal. Well, as they start going through, they realize making the best rods on earth indeed is a big deal. There's much investment in this company, and it's always, always moving forward.
Yeah, I think for me, when I did the factory tour, I had, these preconceived notions that I'd go through the factory and it would be all automation, these big machines building the rods. And I could not believe how many hands touched those rods and what an art it was to every process of building that rod. And it is more of a cottage industry and handcrafting than this big automation process that I had built up in my head. And I had a way greater appreciation for that rod that I fished with that next day after I did the factory tour.
The same opinion is formed by a lot of people. After they've seen what goes into it, then they can understand the price tag on it. Then they can understand the enjoyment, the performance they get out of their St. Croix.
Yeah, the feeling that I've had picking up a St. Croix for the first time, because prior to working with St. Croix, I'd never fished a St. Croix rod. I'd fished a lot of other brands, but when I picked up a St. Croix for the first time, I could feel the quality and the difference, right? It made me a better angler, and it still does today. But seeing that process of how they're building it, the patented materials, the hands that touch that rod, the quality craftsmanship that goes into each and every rod blank is unique. And that in itself is worth the price of admission to the tour. Whether you fish St. Croix rods or not, if you're just an average avid angler and you're coming to the area, it's one of the coolest tours I've ever done. And I've done a lot of factory tours on vacation with my family at different locations across the U.S. But the St. Croix Rod Tour is very, very unique. And as an angler, you just get the appreciation of how much work, and art, and craftsmanship go into each and every blank.
And that work and art and craftsmanship are all very much appreciated by the owners. I tell people that one of the hardest things to do here as an employee is to hold the door for one of the owners. It's 3 brothers and a sister that own the company, privately owned completely. And if one of us is holding the door and they come, they'll take the door and encourage the employee to pass through first. Something else I want to mention before it slips my mind. At the end of the tour, one of the things I will talk to the visitors about is something I can't show them, and that is the mindset of the owners. To sum it up, when I retired, and this is now going to be 9 years ago this summer, I was in a meeting. I was asked if I had thought about what I'd like to get paid for doing tours. I said if I could, because I was not retired at that moment, I'd like to keep my current hourly rate. And without hesitation, it was granted. Where does that happen?
Right.
Well, let's go on to the next step. Since I've retired, I've had 11 races. Where does that happen? As I sit here with you, Tony, I'm making almost double per hour what I did when I was first hired. But now let's apply that to the visitors. Tours are free. There's no charge. Just come, let our people know when you're coming so that we can arrange, and I will be here. I will be off Barbie's to-do list. Yes! And we'll spend a couple hours together walking through the process, going step by step and see it start to finish.
So if people want to get signed up for the tour, they can call the factory store here. They can go on the website.
Yep. Call us, email us, just let us know.
I highly encourage our listeners, if you've never been to St. Croix Rod Factory, if you've never been to the store, if you've never done the factory tour, I highly encourage people to do it. If you're an angler, whether you're an avid angler or casual angler, you get a greater appreciation of the craftsmanship that goes into it. It's American engineering. You know, people, even if you're not an angler, if you're into watching how things are made, well worth your time to come here, do the tour with Ken. You learn a lot about just American ingenuity factory. And here we're making them still today in the factory store, or in the factory and in the factory store here at St. Croix in Park Falls, Wisconsin. Ken, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I truly appreciate it. Every time I've come to this factory, I've seen Ken's face here. Thank you for sitting down on the Dialed In Angling podcast, my friend.
Oh, it's truly been my pleasure. Appreciate it.
So stay tuned. We've got more interviews at the St. Croix factory coming up. OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Download the app today to get fisheries informations in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, along with research tools for serious anglers and beginners alike. Filter lakes by species, trophy only, keeper fish, abundance, or all of the above. Plan which lakes to fish with the app, navigate to the accesses, and once you're there, use the onX best-in-class weather imagery and fishing hotspots to catch more fish. onX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you would never known existed. onX Fish, the app that is changing the game on ice. Now sitting across from me is my next guest at the St. Croix factory, Robert Woods, product manager of Seviin Reels. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you. Happy to be here. Glad to see we got some good ice this year.
Oh, you and me both, my friend.
Yeah.
Last year was a nightmare. This year's been a dream to be on the ice. Seviin Reel brand was launched when?
2 years ago at ICAST.
Okay. So I've had the pleasure of fishing Seviin Reels for a full, almost 2 seasons now, basically a season and a half, but I've had open water and on ice. You know, when it comes to reel technology, there's not too many spinning reels that I can say that I used in open water and on ice and had tremendous success. A lot of that doesn't convert. The grease is different. The drag systems are different. I am a huge fan of Seviin Reels. Give us a little backstory on the reels themselves. I know a lot of people may not even know that St. Croix has a reel brand, Seviin Reels. What can you tell us about the backstory, the brand, the reels themselves?
Sure. Yes. With Seviin, I want to say it was probably 4 years ago now. Collectively, you know, the executive team in this building said, does St. Croix deserve to be in reels? And ultimately the answer was yes. And if you remember, what was that 10, 15 years ago, St. Croix had reels. You know, they bought them from somebody, put a label on them. They were a solid reel, but there was no plan around it. And really with where St. Croix has gone, these reels needed to stand on their own. I mean, a St. Croix is a rod. And at the end of the day, you know, the best rods on earth, that took 70-something years to earn the right to call them the best rods on earth. So we couldn't come out with St. Croix Reels, best reel on earth. So Seviin had to stand by itself, but nothing was shorted when we started developing these reels. When you go in the back here, we have our dynamic analyzer for the rods. Right next to it is 17 test machines for the reels, and that's right here in Park Falls. So nothing was spared in the development. We really keyed in on what was important, looking at the techniques that are important now. When you look at these guys, you know, shaking a minnow and the drags that they need on the finesse type approaches, but really focused on the performance, overall dependability, that are the pillars of the Seviin brand. So,
yeah, I fished the GF series, GX, GS series, open water and on ice. Like I said, had tremendous success spinning and bait casting reels. Really, you know, what I love about the reels is how light they are. You don't notice them. You know, a lot of reels that I fished in the past, they don't complement the rod I'm using. And for St. Croix rods, I own all St. Croix rods. I don't want to put a reel on there that's going to hamper the power and action of that St. Croix rod, which it was intended for. And so what I love about the reels for the Seviin Reels is how light they are. First of all, when you pick them up out of the box, they're pretty light reels. The drag systems are great. I use a lot of different species of line. I go from braid to fluorocarbon to mono. All of the reels handle each species of line perfectly. The pairing with them. I always tell people too, ice anglers in particular, I like bigger spool bodies because it seems like you don't get that memory, that coiling on your line. You get better drag systems, you know, the bigger the reel. You can put a Seviin reel on that's upsized. Like I upsize my reels a lot when it comes to ice fishing. If you look at my rods and what I'm using, I'll upsize my reels, where a lot of people will go with the smallest size reel possible, let's say for a panfish rod.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. I don't like those tiny little drag systems. I don't like the memory that comes from those tiny little reels. 7 reels, how many different sizes are there in that category? And, for me, I think, our 2000 series, our 2500 series, you can just about fish anything with those reels, open water and on ice. But elaborate a little bit on the different sizes and what we have to offer at 7.
Yeah, we're at, for all of our freshwater spinning reels right now, it's 750, 1,000, 225, and 3,000. Because there's a lot of those, micro anglers that want the 750s, 1,000s, but there definitely has been that push where people are understanding the benefits of a larger arbor on a spool, line memory, how well the line flows off of the spool, further casting. So really, when you look at our 2 and 25 and 3, we're a little bit bigger than what the industry average is. And a lot of that is feedback from anglers like yourself who helped with development, say, hey, I really want to see something a little bit bigger. You're going to pick up a little bit more line too. You get your faster gear ratios that way. So, or your interest per turn. So I think, we look at what crappie anglers on open water are doing, running really light braids, and they want, that castability still. So we're seeing a lot of 2 and 2500 sizes being used there. When you go down south and they're shooting docks with them too, they want that bigger spool. So really listening to all the anglers, because St. Croix as a whole is a multi-species company, right? We want rods for everybody, for the different techniques, and we focus that in on the reels too. I know you said you use them on ice. Well, that was a learning process to find a gear that's going to work for when it's 95 out in August down south, and it's also going to work on the ice up here. You think, well, it's grease. Man, I keep a tube of the one we ended up on my desk as a reminder of what something that simple can be a big headache, So really what we did is when we released the panfish systems for ice a couple years ago, we developed that reel ourselves as well while we were developing 7 on the background. That's why that reel, the PSI 800, doesn't have a 7 logo, because 7 wasn't launched yet. But that was part of the whole development process, and that's where we learned that, different greases and what we need to be looking for that's going to work at -25 when you pull it out of your truck, but it's also going to work when it's sitting on the deck in the sun in August. So
I honestly, when I pulled out the 7 reels, rigged them up on my CCI rods, I had no idea if the grease, if the bearings, if the reels would operate under extreme conditions. I have had no issues. We just got off the Chippewa Flowage. It was 27 below this morning. I'll tease that out about the episode. Granted, we did slide into a hard house for the actual episode, but we fished outside. Our rod cases were outside. My rod case was outside all night. Sat in my snowmobile. We rode out on the chip, got out to our spots, fishing, no issues with the reels. I can't say that about a lot of other reels I fished. I think ice fishing ruins or tests everything, right? If you want some real testing ground to whether your product's going to hold up or not, you bring it out on the ice and you're going to find out pretty quickly. 7 reels have held up for me. They've been nothing but optimal performance, even in extreme conditions. And then again, those same rods and those same reels are, the same size reels I use in open water as well. So I'm right here. I'll raise my hand and say I am a believer when it comes to the materials, the lubrications that you guys use in 7 reels. No doubt about it. We tested it on the Chippewa Flowage this week alone, and I test it every single day as a guide when I'm out there and customers are using our products.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. I mean, I appreciate all the feedback you've provided, through the development phases and that. And you're absolutely right. Ice is the harshest. Everything, your snowmobiles, your augers, anything that's gas or battery is just, it's taken a beating, and the reels are no different. It's a different animal. And then again, we have saltwater offerings too, so that's a whole different dynamic. So, back in the test lab, we have salt spray chambers, UV chambers, and then we've got a freezer sitting next to that. So, really, we want to make sure that everything's buttoned up when we go to launch, and that we're putting the best possible product that we can in our angler's hand. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, to make your time on the water better.
I'm a firm believer, huge fan of 7 reels. Robert, before I let you go, are there anything that you can tease out with 7 things, new product developments? I know in this episode we're going to be teasing out a little bit as it comes to product for Rapala. What are some things coming down the pipeline for 7 reels?
Yeah, we're dedicated to development and dedicated to this brand. So come ICAST, you're going to see a few different things from 7 and St. Croix, and maybe even another pairing of the 2 brands, like our GXR last year that won Best of Show at ICAST. So the development never stops. So we got some exciting things coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I know you're a busy guy. I truly appreciate it. I think our listeners appreciate it. If you get an opportunity, pick up a 7 reel. You'll be surprised just at the overall quality and the craftsmanship that go into the brand. Robert, thank you so much, my friend. Thanks for being on the podcast. Stay tuned. We got more from St. Croix Factory coming right up. The next guest to the Dial It Angling podcast, I couldn't be more excited to have these 2 individuals from the St. Croix Rod Factory, Jason Brunner and Jesse Simpkins. Welcome to the podcast. Jason, we'll jump in with you first of all. You're an engineer. You and I have worked together for a long time. Well, all 3 of us have. But Jason is the sort of the mastermind or the
mad scientist.
The mad scientist or knob puller behind powers and actions, designs of rods, open water, ice fishing, saltwater, fly fishing. Every best rod on the planet starts with Jason, right? So Jason, let's introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jason Brunner, Vice President of Operations and R&D. On my 28th year here at St. Croix. And it's interesting because I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and started my career in my early 20s designing tanks, dust collection systems, conveyors for really paper mills around the Midwest. And fortunately, coming out of college, I went to a job fair. You hand your resume to a bunch of people. And early in my career doing that, out of the blue, St. Croix contacted me. Native to northern Wisconsin, grew up less than an hour and a half from the factory in Park Falls. Came up here, did an interview, and my first big question was, why do you need a mechanical engineer to design rods? And long story short, I ended up taking the job, and when I started out, I was like, man, I don't know if I can even do this being a mechanical engineer. There was more to it than I thought, which really intrigued me. So yeah, it just kind of evolved from there. I was really surprised on St. Croix, the technologies they even had at that time, and really what there was, involved into designing the best rods on earth.
I'm always amazed. I love coming here, by the way. It's like I'm like a kid in a candy store. When I walk around, there's piles of rods in Jesse's office, in your office, in Gavin's. I'm always excited to come here. Like when I pulled up in the parking lot today, the smile has not left my face since I've been in this building. Jesse, speaking of rods, you kind of teased out a few rods to me. You showed me a sampling of what's coming from St. Croix. There's always new product coming from St. Croix. But before we start there, let's just back up. Jesse's the one who brought me to St. Croix. I thank him for bringing me into this company. But let's get the backstory about you. You coming to St. Croix and the evolution of this whole brand. And it started with you, my friend.
It didn't. It started with the Schluters back in 1977 when I call Gordon Schluter the father of the modern era of St. Croix. And when he bought the company, we were doing OEM projects for other manufacturers. Yeah. People don't know that we made probably every Snoopy rod for years, right? But that wasn't their own business. It wasn't the St. Croix business. They set down on a path of building a brand. And one that in my history of being part of the fishing industry, I had so much respect for. And so when I wanted to make the transition from Plano back in the day and was looking for a place, I was talking to a number of people, but it was the Schluters that when I had a chance to talk to them and get a sense of how they loved this brand, how they loved this community. And, it made me want to be part of it. And so, like I said, the brand was built way before I got here. I told people when I got here, the only thing that I could probably do is mess it up, right? it was really solid. So, but fortunately, when I got here, they were very, very open, and we started talking about it. They talked about the brand in such golden terms, and, it was amazing. And I wasn't seeing that necessarily in what I saw in the advertising and the way that we spoke at as a company. And so we went down a path of making that change. And it's been wonderful because we talk the same way now. We all talk the same way. You speak in the same language because when we started working together, right, we let you know how we were going to speak to the brand, best rods on earth, 32 hands, handcrafting each one, etc. So that's been a blast. But for me, right, I came from an injection molding background and watched all that, and to see what it takes to build rods, right? Quite frankly, I had no idea they started as flat material, built tubular around mandrels, the things that Jason and his team has showed us. And then when I learned about the materials and technologies that Jason and his team have developed and implemented over the years, it was remarkable. And I think collectively, the first time that we all got a chance to do that, CCI.
Croix Custom Ice Rods.
Yep,
Yes, it was.
for sure.
Yeah, I remember Jesse hauling rods to the ice show, and Jason was there to get input.
Yep.
We went in a back room. I think Billy Linder was doing interviews there, right? And we just kind of took over, and we started looking at powers and actions and different technique-specific ice rods. I know, Jesse, we were really nervous because we were coming in at a price point that the world had never seen.
Yeah.
But we're building them right here in the factory. And from that point forward, I've been a St. Croix fan since the first moment I've picked up a St. Croix rod, and that happened to be an open water rod. But when I picked that rod up, I was like, I felt like home. It felt natural to me. It felt like that rod was meant to fish with, right? And same thing can be said about the Croix Custom Ice rods. We started out with all sorts of different ideas and then had to kind of neck them down to what we wanted to see and what we thought the consumers would gravitate towards. Jason, let's walk us through it, because I know you sort of designed the blanks, the first blanks that we had, and then it was guys like myself, Joel Nelson. There was a bunch of different individuals that were part of
Absolutely.
that. And Jesse all hauled them down there. We kind of all put our heads together. But give us the story on, the CCIs in particular, Croix Custom Ice Rods.
Yeah, it was when we talk about all the innovations and everything we've done throughout the year, when they said, well, we want an ice line that we build here, for one. I mean, bottom line is a lot of manufacturers, they get their blanks from somewhere else. They're protruded, they're solid, whether it's carbon or glass. But we've made tubular blanks here for decades. Well, how do we incorporate that into an ice rod? Something that we actually build the foundation right from the start here in Park Falls. And yeah, this is going to be a fun challenge. And it was, because you're dealing with rods that are completely different. I mean, from surf to whatever, you have a pretty big platform to work from. And now they're saying, I want a light extra fast that's only 24 inches long. It's like, okay, so we knew we had the process to manufacture the parts. We have the rolling and wrapping, and we had the raw materials. For the most part, there was one that we had to go out and find that is unique to CCI. But it's how do we make these powers and actions? I mean, we literally, from the mandrels itself to the tubular part, how do you get that light extra fast where the majority of the deflection is taking place only compared to a longer 7-foot rod? That deflection is taking place for the first 24 inches. We got to narrow that down into 6 inches into making it extra fast. So yeah, we blue skied a lot of stuff. We learned a lot about the materials and the tooling that we had, and we learned to take glass material and fuse it with carbon fiber, which is something that nobody's ever done before. I mean, it's a complete transition of materials in a short period of time dynamically within that blank. We threw a dart and it worked, and it was incredible. So we took all of our minds, put them together, and we created this set of blanks, which we thought, man, these are it. These are pretty good. And then we bring in the Tony Roaches of the world, and we meet you at the St. Paul Ice Show, and you guys start feeling these. Yeah, your first impression was, oh man, this is really good. But when you guys fish every day, I design stuff. I design stuff that suits your needs. The ability that you guys had to take those designs, which we thought were pretty
Absolutely.
good, and really critique them. I remember coming back from that St. Paul Ice Show going, man,
Your head was swimming a little bit.
Now I'm not going to sleep again for a while. How are we going to do this? And then we just continually took everything we learned from the first foundation to the input we received from you guys, and we went to work, and CCI was born.
Took 18 months to get to where we delivered final rods to the warehouse.
Yeah.
And there was a number of iterations of a number of the different blanks that we had.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show, the feedback from the field, from you guys that are out every day, is critical to what we do. Critical.
Yeah. In terms of the materials, I mean, after that show, I remember coming back and saying, "Hey, this glass material we're fusing, it's too stiff, it's too thick, it's not going to work." I mean, it took us almost a year to find a supplier that would make it for us, because we don't just randomly go buy our carbons or glass materials from somebody. We specify what we want, which is unique about St. Croix. And fortunately, we found somebody that would make it for us, and we introduced that into CCI.
And it's funny, the parallels between CCI, right, and the things that we just talked about, and what your team does on open water rods is exactly the same. It's literally no different, other than the challenges that shortening those rods really provided us.
And we had a challenge with our extra fast open water rods for a while, making them durable enough with that high deflection towards the tip. But we had been there and done that, so we just took all those learnings and applied them right to CCI. We're like, we're a step ahead on this already.
I get the fun side of it, right? I just get to test it. You guys have to worry about the tooling, the materials, everything that go into the rod, but I get to test it. And I have to say, I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, when I pick up a prototype blank, it's almost right there. Maybe some tweaks, but that's
Mad
Jason.
scientist.
Exactly. Because I've worked not only on CCI, but the redesign with the Avid series, Tournament Walleye series, Icons.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get that bundle of rods, then I'm like a kid. I get to experiment, I get to play, I get to fish jig wraps, I get to fish ripping wraps, I get to fish perch, walleyes, panfish. When I look at the CCI lineup, it's pretty darn solid from across the board, whether you're a panfish angler, a walleye angler, a lake trout angler, whether you like fishing spoons, whether you like fishing deep, whether you like fishing outside. We have rods, not only rod blanks, but handles that match the way we fish. I look at a couple of my favorites in that lineup would be the iRazor rod. I love the iRazor, right? I just got back from Lake Winnipeg. A couple episodes ago, we had filmed Dialed In Angling, and to fish a number 6 rip and wrap in less than 10 feet of water, and to have a 6-pound fish thrashing its head the entire time like a giant pike, and to be able to absorb those big head shakes, with the fact that in Manitoba you cannot use barbs, so you don't want to lose those baits. It's easy for those fish to throw those big, huge lipless crankbaits. That rod handles perfectly. And I can take that same rod and I can put a rattle and roach spoon on, drop it down, and fish it just as comfortably as I do those big rip and wraps. That speaks volumes for that rod. Same thing you can say with the CCIs with the Pan Dancer. I have total control over that bait with that Pan Dancer, whether I'm using light tungsten, small spoons. We designed it for that. When I walked in here in the factory store and I started talking, we were talking about the Perch Seeker rod. I know I personally, that was like my baby. I love that Perch Seeker rod. I use it all over the place. And then you fast forward to the house rod, the CCI house rod with the full cork handle. We designed that so it'll fit in rod holders. But that power and action is really good for a lot of different species. You can fish bluegills with it. You can fish perch. You can fish walleyes. We truly have not only the best rods on earth, the best materials on earth, and some of the best engineers on earth for sure. So I appreciate you guys, first of all, sitting down with me and talking a lineup. You can tell I get excited when I start talking about rods.
I was just going to say that. He gets a little excited, doesn't he?
Well,
That's a good thing.
Because when I look at rods and I look at powers and actions, I think of the fishing potential in the fishing that I want to do, right? And so when I look at a perch seeker, I think Devil's Lake, North Dakota. I think Mille Lacs Lake. I think of all these destinations that I could fish, that I could be fishing with that particular rod blank. And that is said for open water as well. You know, the technique-specific designs that we do for open water, not just for walleyes, for bass, for pike, for muskies, you name it, St. Croix makes it.
Well, and you talked to me about teasing a little something out, for later this year in ICAST. So you might see some sort of legacy platform be updated and maybe even newer material show up. Maybe.
We'll keep that one under the hood for now.
Yeah.
I got to see a little bit. So I saw the curtain. You guys are definitely going to want to see what St. Croix has to offer, especially at ICAST, some of the unveiling. That's, if people are unfamiliar with ICAST, that's where all the new products are launched. St. Croix every single year has new products launched, best in category. I can't imagine. I can't wait to have the consumers see what I saw today at the factory store. I tell people all the time, if you're coming up to this area, you have to do the factory tour. You have to walk through this place with Ken and see how handcrafted rods are truly made in the United States. It's an eye-opener. I always tell people the first time I did the factory tour, I thought it would be all this automation and big machines. No, it's handcrafting, and it's really truly a work of art, and it's something to see. So coming to the Chippewa Flowage this year, I knew I had to swing into the St. Croix factory, do some interviews, talk to Ken, talk to Robert, talk to you guys. So Jason and Jesse, thank you so much for sitting down with the Dialed In Angling podcast. Cannot wait to see what's in future and what's in store for new products when it comes to St. Croix rods. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
The Dialed In Angling podcast is brought to you by St. Croix Rods, handcrafting the best rods on earth for an elevated angling experience since 1948. St. Croix rods are truly a world-class brand that has earned the respect and admirations of anglers across the planet. I trust St. Croix rods, and you should too. Check them out at stcroixrods.com. And of course, the second part of our podcast, sitting next to me are my two co-anglers for the day. We are on the shores of the Chippewa Flowage. I finally was able to fish the Flowage. I've never fished the Flowage my whole life. Full disclosure, I said it in the episode. I've never got to fish this place. My two guests that are with me today are sort of my influences for coming here. Let's start off with Chris Britton from Rapala. He's the one who talked me into coming out here. I'm glad I did. And of course, we met up with his good buddy, Ty Sennett, Sennett's Guide Service. Our absolute saving grace due to the fact that it was 20 below today. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Thank
Good
you
to
for
be
having
here.
us.
Thank you.
So, Ty, let's start with you. Let's get a little background about you. Ty Sennett, what's your passion? Obviously, we're ice fishing. We sat in your house. I don't want to spoil out the entire episode, but we arrived in Hayward, and it was 20 below. And I know leading up to this that temps were supposed to be miserable. So, Chris was like, hey, I know Ty rents houses. He runs a guide service. We opted to do the hard house option. It was great, man. We pulled up. You're basically fishing basins by yourself. I was shocked how few people are on the Flowage, but tell me a little bit about yourself, your guide service. Fire away, man.
All right. Well, I grew up down in Illinois. Don't hold that against me, but grew up down there. But we spent all our summers up here. My parents were passionate about the Hayward area and the Chippewa Flowage specifically. So they brought all us kids up here, and I just fell in love with the place and loved fishing at a young age. My dad was great about taking us out fishing. So I figured I got to find something to do up here to stay up here in Hayward. So I started guiding at a very young age at 16, and I just loved it. I just putting people on fish and figuring out new water, and the Chippewa Flowage is my favorite lake to fish on up here, but I fished all the other lakes. There's a lot of beautiful lakes in the Hayward area. and they all hold different species and different opportunities. Clear water, stained water, rivers. I mean, it's a great area up here, and the people are great. We didn't see any people out today.
No, it was definitely a ghost town. But I was shocked, because I think of Hayward as booming, bustling. I've worked with St. Croix rods for some time, so I've driven through this area a lot. I've fished over in Webster, Wisconsin. I've fished all over Wisconsin, but I've just never fished the Hayward area. But I've driven through here when it's bustling with people, like especially in the summer months. And I was shocked to see how few people were actually in this area.
Yeah, you got to figure a lot of the resorts are shut down, and a lot of the cabins that are on the lakes, those are summer cabins, and not everybody lives here all year round. So you just don't get the traffic here, and a lot of the lakes in the area are just kind of barren of people. So it's nice to be out there fishing. You don't have somebody right next to you. If you're over in Minnesota, all those lakes just get hammered real hard because you got the metro right there. So it's a lot different here than it is in some of those heavily populated areas, and I love it for that.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, if you're an ice angler and you're looking for a destination where there's not a lot of people, I was shocked. I always, think of, for some reason, I don't know, I just think of Wisconsin lakes as like tons of people around. I mean, that wasn't the case. I was pleasantly surprised. And how scenic it was driving in here on the sleds. We followed you out, drove the sleds out there. And even though it was 20 below, my head was on a swivel. It's just gorgeous scenery, kind of going through the channels and navigating the areas. I always tell people if they want to experience a destination for the first time, hire a guide.
Yep.
It pays big dividends. It shortens your trip to the sense where you don't have to spend the first day or two looking for fish or navigating a flowage like the Chippewa Flowage. I always hear flowage. I think a current, it scares the bejesus out of me. I've never gone through the ice, but I don't spend a lot of time on current ice. Like I don't fish rivers, for example. I don't fish flowages. So, after talking to Chris and he's like, no, I'm good buddies with Ty. He does it all the time. What can people expect? Are there areas that people need to worry about if they're going to come here?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely do want to hire a guide at least for a half day or one full day, because they'll teach you a lot about the lake that you don't want to find out the hard way. There are some areas you do not want to drive. Like you rarely see people in vehicles driving out here.
Particularly on the Chip.
Yeah, on the Chippewa Flowage specifically. Some of the other lakes in the area, people drive vehicles on, but out here you just don't drive vehicles because there's current areas. When people see the drone footage or the footage of us going out, they'll realize like it's a beautiful lake, but there's a lot of little navigation routes that you don't want to drive a vehicle in. And that's why you hire a guide one time at least when you come out here ice fishing. Because you don't want to be out here and be stranded out there and have your truck go through the ice.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I noticed a lot of snowmobile trails. Obviously, snowmobiling's huge here. I'm from northern Minnesota. I know, right when you get snow, boom, the sleds are out, and it was apparent that there's tons of snowmobile tracks out there, but hardly anyone fishing. And so, yeah, if you're looking to come to the Chippewa Flowage, Sennett Guide Service, look up a guy like Ty. I mean, he's been here his entire life guiding. It's well worth it to hire a guide. I always say that to people. Me as a guide, when I go to destinations, whether it's down south or saltwater, I always hire a guide. And then instantly I'm in the tackle shop the next day, like grabbing baits and stuff that I didn't bring that I thought that I was going to use. So
exactly.
Even from a tackle perspective, it's nice to hire someone like yourself. Now, Chris Britton's also sitting here. How did you two meet? I mean, I know you guys are musky heads and stuff, so I don't want to jump to conclusions, but fire away, Chris. Like, how did you guys meet?
Yeah.
How did you become friends?
The gist of it is I grew up middle school all the way to high school with one of my best friends, Luke Ronastrand, who was a muskie guide. And Luke knew Ty before I did. And we met at the muskie shows. I met Ty, what was the old Medina show?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's like the first time I think I met you.
A long time ago.
And we fell in love the first day.
Love at first sight.
Yes.
No, like this guy is super fun. And like after that, we just started fishing together. And next thing you know, we're coming up here every single opener. My wife loves it up here. I come in April sometimes because they open bass early here. Well, it doesn't, it's always open.
Minnesota needs to do that, by the way.
They do.
For the record, I want to say that right now. I'm not trying to interrupt, but that the fact that you guys can fish bass and
an
it's open
opportunity,
before
yeah.
opener. Yeah.
Such a great opportunity.
Heck yeah.
And you're letting them all go anyway.
Heck yeah. I'm all for it, man. I'm all for any kind of fishing as soon as the ice goes out. You know, I'm always jealous of the Dakotas because they're wide open all the time. I see those guys fishing. That's like Green Bay, going to Green Bay. As soon as the ice goes off, we're pounding walleyes.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm always jealous of that. But so you guys, Chris, you come up in April.
Yeah, so that was just a recent thing that they changed over. And in the first year they did it, Ty and I went out. And talking about nobody on the lake on the ice, there was nobody on the lake in April. It was just Ty and I on this entire Chippewa Flowage.
And you can crappie fish.
And it was bass after bass after bass. It was unbelievable. One of the more fun days I've had.
Well, think of that. I mean, I think of so many times when I'm crappie fishing and you get a warm day and all the bass come in the shallows and you just want to absolutely waylay them. You can do it. You can do it here.
And we did.
Yeah, we did. And we catch them the way we want to catch them, which is on husky jerks. Like for me, catching a smallmouth on a jerkbait, there's nothing more fun.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
I'm in. Like you wouldn't even have. You say jerkbait, smallmouth. I'm in. Jerkbait, any kind of fish. I love. That's one of my favorite things to do is jerkbait fish in the summer. And so, yeah, if you say those two words in one sentence, I will drive and get up at 3:00 in the morning and meet you here. So
then you've got walleye opener up here, which I've done for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Staying with Ty, and my wife comes, and it's honestly my favorite weekend of the entire year. It even competes with some of my saltwater trips. I love it up here. But it's the same way. We're casting jerkbaits for walleyes, and it's super shallow, super fun. It's all day. It's at night. It is a blast.
Yeah, and there's so many different techniques on opener you can use. There's guys, it's fairly busy on the lake that day, but comparatively, not really to a lot of other lakes. But I mean, you can go out and jig out in 20 foot of water and still catch them. You can go in some river channels in 12 foot of water, river channels, get fish. There's so many different tactics you can use. Live bait, just everything. Yeah, everything. It's fun.
yeah, it's a ton of water. I mean, obviously riding out in the snowmobiles this morning. I mean, that's why my head was on a swivel. I'm looking at water. I'm looking at points, sunken islands. There's just tons of structure, tons of water around you. And this is just the Chippewa Flowage, not just the Hayward areas in general. We're just talking the Chippewa Flowage. I did not know this until you brought it up today that ice fishing was not open on the Flowage until 2010.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people listening would be shocked by that to hear that, because I just assumed ice fishing in the Midwest is wide open. Why not? Why did they not have it open? Do you know the reasoning?
I'm not exactly sure, other than years ago they used to draw the lake down a lot lower in the winter. 12 to 14 feet, they would drop it down and kind of would concentrate the fish. And maybe they were protecting the fishery more than anything, and safety-wise.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, safety-wise, when you drop the lake down 12 to 14 feet, those river channel areas are very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So it could have been a safety factor at first, but now they don't draw the lake down like that anymore, thankfully. So now it's a lot safer to be out there. So it's a culmination of a lot of different things, and I'm just glad it's open now.
I always hear stories like out in western reservoirs, like especially in Colorado, Wyoming, where, they'll get ice and it'll cap over, but then they'll draw down that reservoir and someone will go out and drill a hole and you can see down, there'll be air in between the ice and water. Can you imagine? I would absolutely have to go to shore and put a new pair of shorts on. I mean, that would freak me out.
We don't see that.
Okay.
That doesn't happen here.
No, but I've heard stories of that in Western Minnesota. So when you say drawdown, like that's what instantly comes to my mind. But no, it's just interesting that 2010, the year 2010, it finally opened to ice fishing.
Yeah,
that's
so it's
crazy.
fairly young fishery, ice fishery. Now you can't fish walleye, but they opened crappie in 2010.
Panfish, okay.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely stuffed with them. There's just
It is,
a
no doubt.
load of them in there.
I mean, for a day that was 20 below, we shined around. We sat in your hard houses. I mean, spoiler alert for the episode. It was 20 below. We got the heater, the wood heat going. You fired up the house before we got there. It's been years since I fished out of a skid house with wood heat.
I tell you what, I felt like kind of a little bit of a wimp when I saw that kid playing around today.
Yeah, the kid playing out on the ice.
We didn't get that on film. Thankfully, we wanted to keep our integrity.
The one and only person we saw out there was like a dad and a kid, and the dad was obviously fishing in a flip over, but the kid's just doing snow angels out there with no gloves on, and we've got the wood stove going. Like, we don't even want to go outside, but no, just shining around that basin, the amount of crappies we saw, you could tell how fertile it is. And I like the structure, seeing those old river channels as your basin. I mean, that was neat to be able to just look at spots like that with forward-facing sonar. I love it. I'm a fish head in the sense where I love hunting down fish, and I like looking at structure and cool structure and seeing what they're relating to. And usually when I think of deep wintering basins in lakes, I just think of these deep holes that are soft bottom, that are just kind of, contourless. But these are more like canals or channels. Well, they're river channel, right? But it's like a gulch almost.
Yeah, and you'll see there's a lot of sunken bogs out here. And if you don't know what a bog is, it's basically when they flood a bay that has a lot of peat moss in it. That peat moss floats up from the bottom. Like, say if you put 30 feet of water in a shallow area, in a marshy area, that marsh will float up to the top, and some of it stays on the bottom. So you'll be out there fishing, and you'll be fishing around a bog that's on the bottom that maybe is the size of a house or maybe the size of a car, and that draws the fish in. So it's kind of cool, just the structure that's out here.
Yeah, and what was interesting is, with dialed in angling, we only get to fish one day, right? We show up, fish for the day. We only fished a small portion of the Chippewa Flowage, but you were saying there's sort of an east and a west side to it, a real clear portion of the flowage and a dark portion. Let's talk more into that, dive more into that, and breaking down that, because that's interesting to me. I can't think of another fishery where it's that different, right? Or water clarity, that's stark contrast.
Right. So there's 13 creeks and rivers that flow into the Chippewa Flowage, and there's only one in particular on the west side of the lake, and the east and west side are divided by one bridge. There's 8,000 acres on each side. The west side has a lot of natural springs and one small creek/river that comes in, and that one doesn't really flow that hard. So mainly the west side is filled by natural springs, where the east side, it's all filled with all the rivers and creeks that come in. And all those creeks build up tannin from the woods, and they draw that tannin, that dark water in, and just plain mud runoff that comes in too, where the west side does not get that. So, you go way over to the far west side of the Chippewa Flowage, and you can see down sometimes 8 feet in the spring, 6 to 8 feet, where on the east side in that darker water, you can only see down, 8 inches to a foot and a half. So it's a stark contrast from one side to the other. And that's another great, it's so diverse. If you like clear water, you go fish the west side. If you like stained water, you fish the east side. And they both produce. It's not like one doesn't.
Is it more like fish relate more to vegetation?
On the west side.
On the west side in the clear water, and then it's more, basin, boulder, structure, mid-structure, mid-lake structure?
We don't have a lot of boulders, but like on the east side, they don't relate to, if we have a weed bed on the east side, they will relate to it, don't get me wrong, but in the winter, they don't relate to the weeds very much on the east side. On the west side, they do. In the summer, it's totally different. They relate to the weeds on both sides. Now, they'll still relate to sunken bogs, brush piles. They're fish. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. But in the winter, it's a totally different game. On the east side, they'll relate to river channels. On the west side, they still relate to the weeds in the basin areas.
Yeah, just a cool part of the world. Again, I could just snowmobile around and just look at all the structure for days. That's the crummy part about dialed in angling. I only get to experience something for like one day or a day and a half if we get some B-roll or something. Like, I'd love to just stay here and just try different parts of the flowage. It's just really intriguing to me. I'm definitely coming back to experience that. Now, while fishing, I, again, just don't want to tease out the entire episode or spoil anything, but we got to unveil a new Rapala bait for next year.
Yeah, a little sneak peek. We were given the go-ahead by Matt Jensen, the VP of marketing. He said, go ahead. So we did. So the bait is the new Rapala Nano Wrap. Nano basically describes the size of it. It's a little tiny rip and wrap with one little treble on it. And it really was designed for ice fishing and crappie and panfish. And yeah, it's a killer little bait.
That thing's going to catch everything. You know, what I'm mad about, Ty, is we didn't really get to fish the Nano Wrap.
I know.
Chris fished the Nano Wrap.
I
guess I got to sample it for a second after the school had moved on.
I had all the best intentions.
A little late.
It is a cool looking bait. It's a bait that's going to catch everything. Immediately when you look at it, it screams panfish. It screams crappies, bluegills, perch.
Yep.
When I saw that thing, I thought crappies, perch instantly. Yep. But little baits like that, it's amazing. You know, like even today, when you're fishing on the basin, how many walleyes are out there and what they're feeding on is exactly what that Nano Wrap represents. It's small minnows, it's invertebrates. I can't tell you how many times, like the roach jig, for example, with the marabou, that tiny tungsten, how many walleyes I catch on that little teeny jig. It's because they're feeding on those microorganisms. So that Nano Wrap, it's going to be a killer. It is an absolute fish catching machine.
Yeah, and that one will be released next winter. So next ice season, that one will kick off. So yeah, I think people will be excited about it. It's a cool little bait.
It is. Yeah, it's very, very cool. I was so pumped when you brought it because I actually saw the bait prior to us filming with it. I was pumped about it the first time I saw it. I know we've got some new stuff coming next year, like always, that I'm really jacked about that we're not going to spoil out.
Yeah, we can't let everything out.
but definitely that Nano Wrap, I was pretty excited to see. I've had a great time fishing with you guys. I mean, most of the time when it's 20 below, most anglers, well, like we saw today, no one was out.
Home.
Yeah, they stayed home. They sat on the couch. They watched football. You can't always choose the days you go fishing. And so sometimes you just got to make the best of it. And the sun was shining. We were catching some fish. We're sitting inside a house with the heater on, with the wood heat going. Just the smell of that wood heat is inviting. Yeah, I mean, it's like
love
calming.
It really is. It's comfortable.
It's calming. So if you ever had a inkling about fishing the Hayward area, fishing the Chippewa Flowage, I would say come on up here. If you're a panfish angler in particular, ice fishing up here. I mean, just looking around a little bit with forward-facing sonar, this lake is chock full of fish. I would have loved to been outside just hole hopping. We would have absolutely annihilated them.
We'd have murdered him.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And
I'm not saying we didn't. Can't give it away.
Well, I'll tease a little bit. It was 20 below. We did all right, you know. But everyone knows me. I drill a million holes. Like that's what I love doing. I love moving around. But it's 20 below, and
that wasn't possible.
The slight wind, like we were getting cold weather warnings and advisories on our phone all day. I don't think it warmed up more than 6-7 below. And so hole hopping is really not an option, especially with light biting panfish like that. But just looking around, I would have died to go out just drilling holes and moving around. I love doing that. I mean, that's when you get into mid to late winter, there's a couple bites that I really want to do. And that's panfishing in basins, perch fishing, bluegill sometimes on camera. You know, those are the type of bites that I sort of gravitate towards. But you know what? Sitting in a hard house, in a skid house with the heat on, catching fish, hey, that's pretty fun in the winter. I had a blast fishing with you guys. I appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. Appreciate Chris dragging me up to the Flowage, finally getting to hang out with Ty. We're going over to Ty's place to actually have some dinner. I mean, I
have nothing to do with that. That was my wife.
Hey, you know what though? That's Wisconsin hospitality.
Yeah.
When we show up, we were loading up the snowmobiles. You have the fish house fired up with the heat on. You come back in and get us, bring us out there. We catch fish, and then we come back to your place, and your wife cooks for us.
Doesn't get much better than that.
I couldn't think of a better fishing experience. So thank you guys for being on the podcast. You're going to want to tune in next week, and of course, tune into this episode of Dialed In Angling because we tackle the Chippewa Flowage. Thank you, gentlemen, and good luck fishing, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Tony.
you.